This Nottingham Forest season preview edition of the Premier League Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks, content and contests, including our NFL Win Totals contest with a $1,000 prize. Join today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Premier League Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. My name is Malcolm Bamford, coming from Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of England. And we are carrying on our 20-team season preview of the upcoming Premier League season. Today is Nottingham Forest. That's exciting. And inside track here, Baz, this should be your heartland from somewhere in Binghamton. Mr. Barry Penaluna. Hello, Baz. What's happening?
Malcolm. Yeah, that's quite ironic. We've got a couple of Nottingham fans on the show, and yet I'm the only one sitting here in the county of Nottinghamshire. I literally just drove past the City Ground 20 minutes ago on my way back from work. I can see the City Ground from my office, sitting at my desk. I can see the City Ground over in the skyline. It's not very pleasant. I normally just pull the blinds down.
It's not very pleasant. It's a bit strong, Baz.
But yes, it's good to have some proper Nottingham fans on today to talk Nottingham Forest with us.
I notice you've been very careful with your Nottingham. Your Nottingham's I noticed, Baz.
I'm absolutely terrible for calling them Notts Forest, and I know you.
None of this. No, don't do that, mate. I've made a mental note not to slag Brian Clough off because I don't want Nibs storming off like that BG did on Clive Anderson back in 1988. If you remember that, there's a reference for the kids. We have got two Nottingham Forest fans, and I reckon this is probably a network first, Baz, because we've got a father-son combo. We've got Mr. Ian Simpson and Master Monty Simpson. Simpsons, good afternoon. How are we doing?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, just finished work.
Excellent. Looking forward to this Forest chat. Me and Baz, we normally, when we've been starting these, we sort of have a little bit of a mental trip down memory lane on whether or not we like or don't like the opposition or the team we're talking about. Well, we don't like anyone, we've decided, but I've got no big problems with Forest, Baz. Like,
that's because you don't live in Nottingham.
Right, so yeah, I mean, you come at me with it, but the fans have always been all right. I obviously know Nibs and Monty. Like, Matthews has been fine. I lived in the Midlands, and you could split them up. The Forest fans were fine. Like we said yesterday, the West Brom fans were fine, but the Wolves fans are all nutters. The Villa fans were all a bit whingy, but I had no real problem with the Forest fans. And because Forest have been hiding in a different division for such a long time, that they've never really got on our radar to get on my nerves as much as they used to. Like the Ian Woan scoring all those volleys, that's what got on my nerves most about Forest. And then that's gone away for about a generation. Like, so I remember when Steve Watson made his debut as a 16-year-old for Newcastle, straight up against Stuart Pearce. I mean, baptism of fire. Steve Watson, a 16-year-old right winger, and Stuart Pearce just kicking 7 bells out of him. He didn't care one little bit. But then Stuart Pearce came up here, Champions League goal scorer for Newcastle, hit that free kick against Dynamo Kiev. Do you remember that, Baz?
No.
No, okay. That was a conversational cul-de-sac, wasn't it? What's your problem with living in Nottingham then, Baz?
You're just around them, aren't you, all the time? And that makes you dislike teams more, doesn't it, when there's lots of them? I don't particularly dislike them, to be honest. I had a very good experience at the City Ground not long ago with the late penalty winner. That was nice to be in the away end that day. I have also been on the wrong end of some bad experiences at the City Ground as well. What was it? Did you go with me? The one where it was own goals, 2 red cards.
Oh, Henry bleeding Lansbury.
2016. Yes, that's the one. That was a bad day. So it hasn't always been a pleasant visit to the City Ground for me. But yeah, most recent one was far more memorable.
I forgot about that. I do hate them. It turns out you were right. I've just remembered.
I can tell you a story about Henry Lansbury.
Oh yeah, is it a family-friendly story, Nibs?
Very, very. Monty went to school dressed as Henry Lansbury once.
World Book Day or something.
It was Superhero Day.
Oh my, Henry Lansbury.
Yeah, he was a superhero for a short period in Monty's life. Yeah.
Monty looks thrilled that you're telling this story, though. Nips.
More of a story about Monty, not Henry Lansbury, really.
Baz could tell you a story about what's his name, Toffolo, not being his football subs as well, Baz.
Yeah.
we out the same, didn't he? And then it turns out, after all that, hadn't he been done for? Didn't he get done for gambling?
He was putting it all on the horses, wasn't he? That's why he couldn't tell you.
Couldn't afford the £8 a month for Baz. So last season, obviously, Forest were back for the first time in forever. You two boys came up to Newcastle first game of the season. So just tell us, Nibs, about last season generally. It was a right old roller coaster, wasn't it? Because at various points, Forest looked doomed. And then all of a sudden they were fine. So how did you get through all of that?
I mean, for me, it was fantastic start to finish, just being away from it for 23 years. I vowed just to enjoy every moment. I got to 33 games, you went to 30. And it was a roller coaster, but there were moments when we were really awful as a team, but I didn't really care about that last season. I couldn't give a monkeys. It was just brilliant, just going to all the grounds, watching the football that we were. The World Cup had a big impact on us because we were on a right roll just as it finished for the World Cup. Took us a month or so to get back into it. Our run of games was rubbish, to be fair. We were playing top half. But then we kicked in again, like the last half a dozen games of the season. We were really good, really good.
Malcolm had his
that must be
all season long. Like Malcolm,
yeah.
At every juncture where we sort of looked at the relegation picture, Malcolm had you wrote off. Never had a chance.
Really,
that is true. I wasn't the only one though. But it's not like I was like going against the tide from everyone else in the world. It's just like the way they were playing, and particularly that away form. And yeah, we'll get on to kind of why in a minute. I'm actually really quite high on them, so I'm going to make amends for it. But I mean, you say you got to 33 games, you went to 30 games together. Monty, I mean, that was your first time. I love taking Bob. I mean, he's only 11 at the minute. He's not as old as you. But that's your first time in the Premier League. You followed Forest since you were titchy. And to be able to go and watch him around Premier League grounds, you must have had a great year. Like,
Well, I mean, I was looking a bit more into the performances than my dad was, but I was. It was just a nice experience going to all the different grounds, all the massive grounds, just experiencing the atmosphere. It was nice.
Yeah, I remember after that first game where Nibs wasn't really bothered, as long as he had a pint in his hand, and you were a little bit more concerned that Forest hadn't had a kick of the ball in 90 minutes in that first game against Newcastle. The weird thing for me was there was a proper disconnect between Steve Cooper, who seems like a really nice, sensible man, quite easy to root for, and they've got some good players as well, and the fans were all pulling in one direction. And then there seemed a separate thing. It was almost like a different team were signing the 31 players, which was nuts. And then even over Christmas when they took Chris Wood and John Joe off us, I can't quite, like, the left hand knew what the right hand was doing. The decision they got right, I think, was keeping Cooper. But because I don't think Cooper was the one pulling the strings there. So what was all that madness, all that transfer madness about?
Well, firstly, we had to do it because we lost 17 players at the end of the promotion season. Loans had come to an end, contracts were up and people left. So we had to make a lot of signings anyway. We were going to have to do that anyway. So we signed 24. We lost 17, signed 24. In theory, improved players, which we had to do. But the backroom staff, there was a guy called, what was his name? Dale. Oh, what was his name? The American guy, used to be at Barnsley. He was sort of head of recruitment. So he was pulling all the strings for those 30 signings. And then he left around Christmas. So as a new bunch came in to try and organise that. And that guy who arranged the Chris Wood and Shelby deals, which I will never forgive you guys for, was the guy that was just signed permanently from Rangers. He's a Rangers, and I can't think of his name, but the Rangers fans hate him. So there's something gone on in the back room with purchases and recruitment. I think Steve Cooper's got a little bit more involved in it since then, hence why we've only made 2 so far. So 3.
I mean, does some of that come down to having spent up last season, because I mean, they literally threw everything at it last year, didn't they? Spend about 160, 170 million, and it's paid off. You know, it's a gamble. You stayed up good. Do you think? I assume there must be a smaller war chest this year. I know they brought in Elanga, haven't they? Probably 15 million or something, is it?
Yeah.
Do you think things will be tightened a little bit this season?
I mean, we don't need 30 players this season. So, you know, we've got the crux of a squad. So I think the plan, you know, without having sat down with Steve Cooper, I think the plan would always have been, you know, we just got to buy 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players of quality, because we haven't got to do that again. But we had to do it last season. Even if we hadn't gone up in that playoff final, we would have had to have bought at least 20 players. So it's never going to be like last season again. You know, it's going to be like an ordinary transfer window, really.
Yeah, that's kind of a part of what makes me think Forest can go okay. One of the important things, I think, Monty, as well as bringing new players in, is keeping your good ones. Brennan Johnson is still on the books. There were some rumours about him leaving. Will he be at Villa when the season starts, and more importantly, when the window closes?
Well, hopefully not. He's a very important player for us. But looking at our financial fair play situation, it wouldn't surprise me if we do let him go for £50 million, just to try to get us back on FPFA's good books.
Sell them Chris Wood. That's what you want to do there.
Sell anybody Chris Wood.
You text me one day in February and it just said, "Is Chris Wood made of wood?" And that made me laugh. And that was a beautiful summation of Chris Wood's athletic prowess.
Actual Wood is better than Chris Wood.
He kept us up pretty much, if you'll believe some sources.
I mean, the irony is he scored our best goal last season. The irony is he scored that goal we scored against Man City when the whole team touched the ball and we just passed it around them. And ironically, a piece of wood is on the end of it.
I mean, you've done us a right favour with our financial fair play. Like, you've bought us probably 2 or 3 players in a couple of years worth of. Because Chris Wood, I understood why Forest signed him, because it was the same reason we did, which was you needed to score 2 or 3 goals that might save your bacon, and he did that for us. And he got did he get 1 or 2 for Forest? He got but the John Joe one. Like, if you do who do you need in a relegation dogfight who's going to run around and roll his sleeves up? And John Joe's fine. He's been fine for us for a long time. He's a little bit better in the Championship. He was a bit better when he was younger. But he certainly wasn't that type of player you needed. And I think at the time he was our highest earner. He used to cause us all sorts of problems. Every time we were linked with a player, the stumbling block was, are they allowed to earn as much as John Joe? He's on like 80 grand. Then all of a sudden, Forest just took all of that away. And we were like, what's going on there? If that came out in a few years and it was some sort of like Saudi Swiss, it would not surprise me even a little bit. There
was some reports today about Forest being in a little bit of financial bother. Clubs and agents complaining they're not paying their monies, not paying their debts. Is there anything in that?
It's from the Daily Mail, Baz. So
I did notice it was only in
there's absolutely nothing in it. All it is, there's bonuses due at the end of August, and we haven't paid them yet.
Just wait till the end of August, eh?
Well, it's not the end of August, is it?
That might be news in 2 weeks into September.
Yeah.
All right, good, from the horse's mouth. Right, let's get stuck into the numbers. We'll try and work out what Forest are going to do next year and give you some winners. I'll tell you about our Patreon first. Perfect for the diehard DJs who are listening. Exclusive contests, including the NFL Win Totals contest with a $1,000 first place prize. You've got the monthly SGP Stories podcast, which is the ad-free uncensored show highlighting the best from decades of being DJs. The Discord channel, as well as all the contests, merch and everything. In our constant fight against the corporate gambling, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon is the place to find all of that silliness. That is sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Right, numbers, Baz. Nottingham Forest to win the Premier League, 1,000 to 1. Shout up if you're interested in any of this. Top 4, 200 to 1. Top 6, 66 to 1. Top half, 13 to 2. Bottom half, 1 to 14, minus 1,400. 9 to 4 to get relegated, plus 225. 9-1 to finish dead last. And on the handicap, 16-1 if you want Forest with a 49-point head start. Patterns and trends, etc. Forest effectively stayed up with their home form last year. 30 points at home, 8 home wins in 6 draws kept them up. 1 win away from home was a pretty pathetic attempt. There was a couple of red flags in there. They only scored 38 goals, which was tied for 16th in the league. Conceded 68, which was tied for 18th. Leaving them a goal difference, which was tied for 18th in the league. So maybe a little bit lucky, but it was kind of they were quite a streaky team for us. They only won 1 in the first 11 games, at which point they looked a little bit doomed. But then they had a run of 3 wins in 4 games where they beat all 3 relegated teams in January and February. And that just gave them a chance. And from then on, they were always in it. Horrible run of 11 games where they only drew 3 of those. They were right in the shit at that point. But then won 3 of the last 6, drew 2, and stayed up with a little bit in hand, to be honest. They didn't have a big last day sweat. And that home form was great. They had home wins against Liverpool, Arsenal and Brighton. And none of those were giveaway wins as well. They were all in, the Arsenal and Brighton games were particularly in really competitive spots where Arsenal and Brighton still had stuff to play for, and Forest managed to genuinely turn them over at home. I think they need to address the away form. If you are looking for a bet on Forest, you need to be aware of that, really. Just if their form continues to reflect how they played, that difference between how they played at home and away, if that continues, is something to be aware of. But I mean, what's going to change season coming up, Nibs, Monty?
Got to be the away form, innit? I was just thinking there when you're saying about away form, he's set up every pre-season friendly with a 5-4-1, and we didn't do that at all last season, did we?
It's not worked either.
So I just wonder what's his plan for away games? I mean, home games.
5 mil yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah, 5. Yeah. So I just wonder whether he's just working all pre-season on how he's going to play away from home. Is he going to set it up for the counter attack? I don't know. But yeah, that's got to change. We've got to score more goals. We had a Awoniyi last year. Scored 9. Did he get?
He got 10.
10. So we need a bigger goal scorer, but I don't know where that's going to come from.
He was injured last season, so played the full season.
I was going to ask you about Awoniyi because he scored 10, but he only started 17 games.
Yeah,
so scored, goals per game is right where you want him if you can keep him fit.
Exactly.
38 games.
I mean, he's an enigma really, because he looks like he's an 8-year-old who's just learned to run, but he's on the end of everything. He literally, he's just always, he's one of them. He scored off his knee, off his arse. He's one of them players. If you can, like you say, if he can play 25 games.
Who was the big centre back who gave the penalty away against Newcastle? Yes, that's him. Because whenever I saw him, he did some things that got put on the telly where he looked again like a big clumsy get. But then I heard so much good stuff about him. The amount of ceiling he's got, because someone like him comes good. And all of a sudden, I think he could make a massive difference. So has he got a bit of potential, Monty, do we think?
Well, his throw-ins are the real danger. He's got 2 or 3 assists of the assist from 15 games this season. Just from the ball bouncing around and then finding the back of the net.
But what was his injury in pre-season? He dislocated his elbow.
Oh, no, with the old...
I haven't seen any of that.
The long throws. It's a good shout, that. Baz, have a look around the numbers then. Fire us out some. Did you manage to make any good Nottingham Forest bets?
Well, I'm not confident enough. I think they'll be safe. I don't have them being troubled by relegation. I think they'll improve slightly on last season. Haven't had that year under their belt. Not confident enough to take them to finish in the top half. I picked the team who are near them in the market, who I think they'll finish above, and I'm quite low on Bournemouth, so I think Forest to finish above Bournemouth at around even money is not a bad pick. But I looked at the scorer market again. It's why I mentioned Awoniyi, whatever, however you want to see it. I want to look at him. Who do you think is going to be your top scorer? What do you lads think? If you had to look at Forest, who's going to get the most goals this season? I'm looking at Awoniyi and thinking 10 in 17 last year is a good starting point for someone to be your top scoring man for this season.
Or Johnson, if he stays.
Yeah, so you can get Johnson at 4-1. Morgan Gibbs-White's above him at 2-1. I'm assuming he's on a lot of free kicks, penalties, isn't he?
Gibbs-White's a good one for assists. He'll be our top assists. He's in the middle of absolutely everything.
My pick here, Malcolm, would be I want to as top scorer at 6-4, plus 150 for me. That's the one that stood out. I just think if he can start this season like he finished last season, then 15, 16 could be achievable for him, and that's probably enough to be top scorer for Forest, isn't it?
Is Dennis going to be kicking around anyway?
Bloody hope not.
We've got
what's wrong with Dennis? I like Dennis.
We've got Augusta Forest WhatsApp group, and randomly every now and again, Dennis's shit crops up for no reason.
Hashtag right. I'll scribble that out. That I had Dennis written down here as a potential 14-1 top scorer. If he hits and I've scribbled him out, I'll not be happy.
We watched a show the other day where Worrell and Nico Williams were playing golf, and they were asking each other different questions, and who do they not like facing in training? And
Dennis
was mentioned because he's so tricky and skillful.
He's just useless.
He's awful. Absolutely awful.
Did he score against us? Is that why I can remember him?
Yeah, great goal.
Right. There you go. Evidence.
It was a freak.
Hashtag evidence, that is, Nibs. So I've got Forest, like I say, going okay. I initially had them when I made my little league table. I had them in 14th. I've since bumped them up to 12th. 12th place finish for the Tricky Trees. I just think second time around, all the reasons you boys have mentioned, they're going to be a lot more settled. Last year, they just seemed to impose all that silliness upon themselves. I didn't really get it. And they've got some really good players. Gibbs-White is outstanding. I like Johnson. Like you say, the Nia Cartier. And then a lot of teams around them have stood still. And if you're standing still, you're going backwards. You're talking Palace, West Ham, teams like that. So, again, I wasn't quite brave enough to go for the top half finish. But there's 3 picks. There's 3 teams I think they can finish above quite comfortably. West Ham at 5-2. Crystal Palace at 7-4. And then, unsurprisingly, because I've given this out on every show, Everton at 11-10. I think Forest can finish above all 3 of those. So take one, take them all, whichever one you're feeling bravest about. And the other thing I would give out for Forest is the handicap. So 12th place last year finished on 44 points. Forest finished on 38. I think they're a little bit better. If they can get 44 or 45, add that 49 points on the handicap, gets up to 95. Well, Manchester City won the league with 91 last year. So it's 16-1 Forest to win the handicap table. I think are absolutely live. So they would be my picks. And they're all positive. Nibs, Monty, did you fetch out any little nuggets for us?
Well, I've got us finishing to 10th.
Way, go on, Monty.
I'm not as confident as that, but fair play, I'll take it. I'd take 16th again all day long. Just as long as I can get to the grounds I haven't been to. What was I going to say then?
I think we'll finish above Brentford and Fulham.
That's what I was going to say.
I think
they're going that way.
Yeah, so I mean, Forest to finish above Brentford is 2-1, and Forest to finish above Fulham 6-5. So plus 120 for Fulham, plus 200 for Brentford. I mean, I've got Forest a bit lower than that, but I've said on a few shows that sort of top 9 seems to cover itself. You know, it seems pretty locked in all of our tables. But then 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, there's 5 or 6 teams that could all potentially finish in that 10th spot. You know, Brentford got it last year. Obviously, Fulham were in the top 10 last year as well. So that 10th place is wide open. I've no problem with any fans of their team thinking that 10th place could be theirs, because potentially, you know, it doesn't take a massive amount to break that top 10.
We're going to throw out some fantasy players to follow as well. I'm sure Monty's all over this. It's a young man's game, isn't it, the fantasy football? So we've got 5 minutes. We'll throw out some fantasy players. Let me tell you about Underdog Fantasy. one of our sponsors here. The NFL season is right around the corner. Underdog Pick'em is a great way to get down on a ton of NFL player props. Available in loads of markets too. Plenty of opportunities to win the daily MLB contests. And make sure to enter Best Ball Mania 4. First prize is $3 million. Wallop, that's a lot. Head over to underdogfantasy.com. Use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's underdogfantasy.com, promo code SGPN. Fantasy. So we've got a listener league, first thing. Any Nottingham Forest fans who have discovered us by accident here, just listen for a bit of Forest chat. Firstly, the show, we'll go out 2 times a week. We give Premier League picks on the weekend. We do Champions League, EFL. We cover absolutely everything. The Women's World Cup and stuff is in full swing at the moment. So wherever you found us, you can continue to. But Spotify, Apple, Google, Premier League Gambling Podcast. Twitter is at SGP and Premier. So yeah, give us a listen and me and Basil sit and talk a little bit of silliness twice a week for half an hour and make some picks on a weekend. But the Listener Fantasy League, first of all, if you want to enter, you need the code, which is CVVQAB. That is Cake, Victor, Quality, Alan, Ball, CVVQAB. Shut up, Nibs. I panicked then. CVVQAB. I'm normally...
Time out.
What? Hang on, what?
Malcolm's mission was to come up with a different alphanumeric description for all 20 episodes of this. But you used Alan last night. He's already.
Did I use Alan?
You said Alan Brazil last night. It's Alan.
Oh, well, that's a different Alan then, isn't it? Alan Ball.
Alan. So yeah, he failed. Miserably.
Separate. Different Alan. Shut up.
We thought it would be the Q that you'd struggle with. But he's
I must have said what quality before. Anyway, CVVQAB. The problem, I think, is the A in the Geordie accent, because it could easily be an E. So it could be elephant, not Alan. I'm going to keep saying Alan.
Anyway, so basically, get yourself in the Listener League.
Yeah, enter the Listener League. You both play. I remember after that Forest game last year, you were both checking your teams almost immediately in the pub. Monty, we need some top quality Nottingham Forest picks to put in our lineup. Who have you got?
The obvious ones for me, Gibbs White and Brennan Johnson.
Yeah.
I think Anthony Elanga could sneak in because he's only 5 million.
Is he going to get a game then, Elanga? Because a lot of the thing in fantasy is just opportunity. If you've got someone who's playing and they're cheap, that's often good enough. So will Elanga get a game?
Oh yeah, I think he will, especially with these Johnson rumours. If Villa or Brentford boost their price up, then we'll sell him and Elanga will get his games.
Fair enough.
Can I just correct you there, Pav, please? When you said that I'd check my teams, you do know I'm 51 and I've got a full-time job, so I don't play fantasy football.
Do you not play? I must be. Everybody else in the pub was, that was all.
But how much is Danilo? Because if he's cheap, I think he's going to have a season and a half.
He's 5.5 million, Nibs, and I wrote him down. Obviously, see, the obvious ones, Gibbs White and Johnson, are in a lot of templates, but Danilo was one I wrote down at 5.5 million, Nibs, so you're on the right lines. I wrote down Owinyi, obviously, but I think there'll probably be better striking options. Baz, anything stand out for you here?
I picked out same, obviously, Morgan Gibbs White, 5 goals, 12 assists last year, 145 points. So at 6 million for someone on penalties, not a bad shout. Awoniyi, yeah, 6.5 million. 10 goals, as I say, in 17 games. Again, he'd be on my radar, but definitely wait and see with that one. Brennan Johnson's in at 6 million, 8 goals, 5 assists last year. I think Gibbs White definitely stands out as the best of the bunch. I agree with Monty, though. Elanga's worth looking at, because if he does come into play at 5 million and starts playing regularly, I think a lot of people will bring him in there as whether you leave him on your bench as a cheap option to bring in as and when you need to. At that price, if he's playing regularly, he could start to look attractive. So definitely want to
Didn't Henderson score when he was our goalkeeper? Is he worth? Didn't he score?
I was just about to ask you about the keeper situation. Is Henderson expected to arrive, or
Man United are trying to pull our pants down about a loan deal. So it's stalling. I mean, it might be.
They did that with us with Jesse Lingard, and instead we just let him go to you lot.
Oh yeah, that went well.
Thankfully, that worked out all right for us.
So in answer to your question, Baz, we're hopeful, but we don't know. But he's good. He's a good goalkeeper. I think he scored some points, didn't he?
That's one thing that stood out for me is the keeper situation. At the minute, would it be Hennessy?
You can't play. Don't play Wayne Hennessy.
Ethan Horvath played last night in the friendly, and he had
I was going to say Horvath.
He had a shambles last night.
We've also
that would be a concern for me because I think Keylor Navas was a great signing for the second half of the season last year.
Yeah.
And obviously that's gone. You need to replace that. And Henderson's been there. He's done it. Bringing him back in would be massive. If you don't get him, it does concern me a little bit that you're scraping the barrel a little bit in the goalkeeper department.
I think that is important. You look at Leicester last year; they ended up playing Danny Ward. King hell, absolute hologram of a bloke. Like what he was doing all season, I've got no idea. That cost them. They've got relegated because he couldn't stop it going in the goal at any point. Like that's, I mean, tactical genius. That's important. You have to be able to stop it going in. Like. So get a goalkeeper. You want to swap Hennessy for that Chris Wood is what I would do. Sort that out. Man, you need a striker there, Nips. Should be the director of football at all clubs, me. I think, Baz, we've covered everything. Is there anything else you need to talk about, Barry?
That's all from me. If you're listening, watching, make sure you subscribe, like, rate, review. If you're on YouTube, hit the thumbs up and give us a follow, and we'll keep putting this garbage out every week.
Yes, people love the garbage, Baz. Are you two boys going to Arsenal next week?
Yes, we are.
Oh, that's exciting. Lunchtime kickoff at the Emirates. Oh, brilliant. Well, good luck. I genuinely hope you have a good season because I don't mind Forest and you two are ace. Are you going to get up to Newcastle? When's that game?
Boxing Day.
Oh, is it? Oh, you're on that past Mrs. Simpson?
Well, she knows about it, but I think she just thinks it's tongue-in-cheek at the moment.
Ah, right. Bring her up. Send her out the sales from the Metro Centre and that. Be fine.
We could make a trip of it.
Some female interest issues we can sort out for her. Cheers, Nibs. Cheers, Monty. That was loads of fun. I really appreciate it. Have a good season.
Cheers, guys.
Everyone who listened, listen some more. Until the next time, we'll see you down the road. Cheers.